Hello, everyone, and welcome to this spontaneous sort of spur of the moment, however many other synonyms I can come up with, stream about stuff and things and stuff. I hope everyone is doing well. The inspiration for this came from several conversations or contentious interactions, maybe, that I've had today on Twitter, if you can believe it, regarding the unity and peace line, which apparently is now also being extolled by the Republican Party in the wake of the Capitol attack. And there are more than a few people calling hypocrisy on this, and so on and so forth. And I agree with them. But then I also agreed with anybody who said the same of the Democrats and Joe Biden when he came out after the election and said the same. The unity and peace proclamations are hard to believe after 4 years of nothing but absolute vengeful and vitriolic contention between the two parties. And I'm not letting anybody off the hook here. Although the Republicans might have been in power, they weren't anything like nice the whole time either. Anybody who says otherwise, I'm afraid you're being a bit too forgiving. But then forgiveness is kind of the question, isn't it? Is there any forgiveness to be had? What does unity mean? What does healing mean? These questions came up several times in my conversations on Twitter today. And I thought I'd spend a few minutes, not too long. I don't think I have a lot to say about this, but just a few minutes. Might come up again on Lords of the Night, you never know. Going over my thoughts on the whole concept of unity and healing insofar as our politics are concerned, or at least as maybe the broad scopes of our nation. Thank you. This is Kyle. Unity. Sup, everyone? Well, what's up? Me at this hour. So, unity and peace. We are the United States of America. Right? We are united as a nation. We are not united as a single thought process. We are not united as a single set of opinions and perspectives. We never have been. And I say, hopefully, we never will be. Now, before I get into that, thank you, tall person. Happy cigarettes are hazardous to your health day. I guess that can be a happy day as long as your health isn't affected by it. I don't want us to be all homogenized as a nation, all the same, all in lockstep, etc. I mean, the whole concept behind the melting pot has a lot more than just people coming from different nations all over the place. It's also about different perspectives, about a sort of a, lots of different things together to make a new whole. So as far as unity is concerned, I don't want us to be unified in that sense. As far as a nation is concerned, I want us to be unified, as several states put together in common cause under a single constitution. But unity, I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know what the politicians mean when they say that. Healing, okay, healing, I'm not quite sure what they mean by that either. Because like I said, the last 4 years in particular have been nothing but acidic back and forth between the two parties. And the Democrats calling for healing after spending 4 years being nothing but bitter losers doesn't help anything. And the Republicans certainly aren't off to a good start. Not all of them, I have to say, not all. But of course, it is the vociferous minority sometimes that takes the place of an actual majority opinion, unfortunately, as we've seen over and over. So what does healing mean? Well, I think the only thing I can hope for, and trust me, I'm not so naive as to think it's likely. I think it's possible. I don't necessarily think it's likely, but healing could look like something akin to a return to civil disagreement. like I say, I don't want everybody thinking the same way. I don't want everybody having to be forced into one rut of how to behave, what to think, what to say, so on and so forth. There's a lot of taglines lately, and you might have heard me sort of dunk on them several times in my videos. The diversity is our strength thing. Depending on your definition of diversity, yeah, it's a bit contextual, but in the sense of we as a nation of different opinions, different perspectives coming together to try to work toward a common goal of a better country. Even if our opinions of what a better country looks like do differ, finding an equilibrium of some kind, finding a compromise of some kind is the ideal. I don't want a country where everybody's happy all the time about how things are. And I don't mean that like I want people suffering. I mean, what is the results of a perfect compromise? Both sides leave unhappy, but partially satisfied. In order to form a more perfect union, over time, we evolve bit by bit. And that really only comes about under the values that our Constitution attempts to instill in us through civil discourse. And that's what's been lacking distinctly over the last 4 years in particular, and prior to that too. I mean, I'm not putting Obama on some kind of pedestal. I'm not putting Trump on some kind of pedestal. The politics of the last couple of administrations have been gallantly poisonous, whether it's the Tea Party or the Squad, or that kind of thing, or the Resistance. I should probably say the Resistance and the Tea Party are probably the better comparisons there. The Squad came up because they always mention themselves as part of the Resistance. So how do we do that? How do we get back to a point where we can be civil, where we're not completely demonizing everybody and vilifying everybody for association, even tangentially, to one political line of thought or another? Again, I'm not putting any harps or halos on anybody here. But how do we do that? I don't know. I mean, trust me, if I had the answer, I'd be on a TED tour right now, giving out all of the advice I could to make the world a better place. So this isn't me turning into some kind of activist. I just wanted to talk plainly because, like I say, a couple of interactions on Twitter today kind of spurred me toward this. Because in the two instances, and I'll probably detail them more on Lords of the Night tonight if you're really interested. In the two instances I kind of had back and forth with individual people today, I couldn't get sort of a clear idea of what it's going to take to get past this. I mean, I don't believe that what happened at the Capitol should reshape all of our lives now. I don't think either side of the aisle should base every interaction they have with anybody else on the quote-unquote opposite side of the aisle on that one event. If what happened at the Capitol does not represent America, then it does not represent both sides of America and does not speak for anybody but the people who took part in it. And yet we're supposed to believe, from the rhetoric I'm hearing these days, that anybody who happens to be not on the Democrat side is now, I don't know, suborning terrorism or something. That's the rhetoric I see on Twitter. Admittedly, Twitter and the other parts of the internet are, in and of themselves, pretty much echo chambers. I don't believe that to be true of everybody, quote unquote, on the left in their thinking. And I certainly don't believe that everybody on the right is somehow cheering on what happened at the Capitol. But as I said before, the loudest voices oftentimes, well, most times, drown out anybody else. And certainly those that don't want to get involved, that don't feel like they want to get involved, don't have their voices heard because they think what they think and just want to be left alone, like most people do. Thank you, Ebony Williams. Scribbles with a heart. Thank you, Ebony. That's very generous of you. All the love back to you. because this is about unity and healing. So I want to promote that. So I guess the question I have for you guys and the ether in general, what does healing look like? If we actually want to get back to a place where we at least feel like we're being productive as a country, both within ourselves and in concert with other people who we may not agree with, what does healing look like? What would it take? And what are people willing to give up to get there? And by give up, I mean, are people willing to give up the reflexive rancor that they possess for the other side and at least attempt to, I don't know, do something new than what we've seen in the last 4 years? And again, I'm not placing blame, but I'm also not exonerating anybody here, because everybody's been a part to this in some way, shape, or form. I'm not even excluding myself. You know, it's when I read the news every night on Lords of the Night, and we only focus on CNN and sort of the left-leaning and/or completely left media and their interpretation of reality. It's very easy to fall into a trap that the left is just ornery and evil and childish, and nothing of the sort is happening from the right. Well, that's nonsense, of course. But I can't deny that I found myself at times feeling a bit more, I don't know, irritated. I'm more irritated with the media in general, but then, of course, we keep focusing on the left side of the media. Because the thinking was, at least in my mind, for Lords of the Night, if the party in power is one side, reading the media that would, just by dint of their own content, tend to lean in favor of the party in power isn't very productive. I remember during the Obama administration, for a long time, if there was any news shows that I watched with any regularity, they were on MSNBC. And after a while, I stopped watching MSNBC because I saw the hypocrisy. They would rampantly point out the wrongdoings and the inconsistencies, let's say, of the Republican Party. But even in times where I knew something not quite level-headed was taking place in the Obama administration, nary was heard a discouraging word. And so I kind of drifted away from watching stuff on MSNBC because I just didn't trust it anymore. And so then I moved on to something that I thought was more independent, something that I thought was more, I don't know, detached from the mainstream. So I watched the Young Turks and was entertained by them for a while until, God, what was it? It was the Ferguson riots. Well, prior to the Ferguson riots themselves, it was after the Michael Brown shooting. They did a whole bunch of reports and declarations of fact regarding the shooting that all turned out to be wrong by the investigation, by the evidence, and so on and so forth. But to their audience, me being a member, they said a lot of things that with such certainty, without couching their suspicions or anything. And maybe it happened, but I never, ever heard anything of them taking it back or apologizing or correcting themselves, or maybe coming back and having a mea culpa going, maybe we should have waited for all the information before trying to inflame our audience, which is what they were doing. And then after that, for a long time, I just didn't have sort of a media source that I relied upon, because I didn't trust Fox News, because I knew they were going to just be. I thought of them as like the House of Glenn Beck, and I didn't trust MSNBC. I didn't trust the fringe stuff, so I was kind of apathetic to the whole media thing for a long time. And then when, Lords of the Night started and we started reading the news, I fell back into paying attention to what was going on in the world more acutely, and being more critical of news sources. And the rhetoric has not helped anything, obviously. The media has not done anything to try to heal or unify, because conflict and clickbait and everything else is profitable. You know, the lessons learned from Gawker and Salon and all these other places, they've bled over into the mainstream, the sort of institutional media, and now that's what we got. We don't have journalists. Oh, sorry, we have journalists. We don't have investigators. We have bloggers and not journalists. We have stories written by 3 different authors who none of them apparently have the time to actually proofread their work before publishing it to the world. Opinion becomes news. Analysis becomes fact. I don't know how we move away from this. I don't know what we do. I mean, a lot of people are saying social media is probably the greatest evil that's been created in the last 20 years. It feeds into people's emotions. It causes more misinformation than it does help anything. It divides more than it connects. And in a lot of ways, they're probably right. This is all very new to us, even though you might think the internet seems like it's been around forever. Those of you youngins who don't remember what the world was like before, we're still in the Wild West about it all. I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle it. It's been very interesting to see. But it really comes down to, what kind of world do you want to see? You know, you are who you choose to be. And you are the example for yourself as to how you want to be treated. I mean, it's the golden rule, right? So if we want unity of purpose, if we want healing past all of this acid, and I don't mean the trippy kind, I mean the destructive kind, you have to decide to be the kind of person that you want to encounter when a problem comes up, you know, or when a disagreement arises. That's really all you can do. I try to do that myself. I'm not perfect. I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal, okay? I fall into the traps of emotion and reflex just as much as anybody else, but dang it, I try really hard to think before I speak, to consider that I might be wrong. You know, consider the possibility that you might be wrong when you encounter an argument or a difficulty or something. Entertain an idea without necessarily having to accept it. You know, listen insofar as you can stand something, depending on what it is. And that's what I try to promote with the TEDx talks. I know I'm kind of looping all back around. I can only speak for myself here, guys. Okay, I can only speak for myself. If you find any use of this for yourself, great. I'm just sort of pontificating here. But I'll loop this back around to my TEDx talks, and then I'll probably end this because I don't mean this to go on very long. Why do I do the TEDx talks? I probably answered this before, but I'll do so again, and probably will do so in the future. It's entertaining on a sort of Mystery Science Theater 3000 level to critique, respond, have fun with something. But the TEDx talks also go back to the root of what caused me to create my YouTube channel in the first place. It was an attempt to try to understand someone's perspective, even if I didn't agree with it. The attempt to learn something and also allow for the possibility that I could be wrong, and for the possibility that I could just have my mind changed. You know, even from a source that seems kind of shaky, I don't want to close myself off to the possibility. And I want to listen to what people have to say, and I want to think about what they've said and say, does it make sense? What points are good? What points are bad? Does their argument hold any weight? And even if it's a bad argument, even if it's a rehash of something I've heard 20 times before, usually it's coming from a different person. And it's always possible that a different person with a different perspective on something could tell me something I don't know, or cause me to have to think about something within myself that I hadn't considered before. That's what I'm trying, in a way, to train myself to do through the TEDx talks. Have some fun, not take everything seriously, but at the end of the day, really listen. That's why I pause the video every few seconds and I think about what they said. And we have the bingo card to sort of analyze the arguments and everything. I really appreciate that, by the way. I had a suggestion of taking a square off of the bingo card because it was too ambiguous. And like, I try to avoid ambiguity in the bingo card, but there are some places where a little ambiguity, a little subjectiveness is okay because it results in us having a real conversation about what we heard, what we listened to, and the value of what they had to say. And that's valuable. And also coming away understanding that even if I'm listening to someone I don't agree with, and of course, it all depends on what they're saying and what they're promoting, but all the same, 9 times out of 10, they're just another human being, just like me. They've got an opinion. It might make sense. It might not make sense. Their intentions might be good. They might be questionable. But at the end of the day, they're just a human being. Not a monster, not some evil supervillain or anything. Your mileage may vary depending on who we're talking about individually, but generally speaking, I don't see anyone to be scared of or to hate most of the time. Like I say, don't necessarily agree with them all the time. And of course, depending on what they're promoting, I might be more or less inclined to want to listen to anything else they have to say in the future, but I give it a shot. I give them a fair shake. And I listen to what they're saying. I don't necessarily care about who they are as much, or try to, judge the quality of what they're saying based on what they look like or who they are or where they are in society. As much as possible, I do this, and I hope other people do it too. Argue the point and not the person. Value what is being said and not necessarily who is saying it. Again, context matters. Is somebody being honest? Are they being sincere? Are they being a hypocrite and so on? Sure. But when it comes to just bantering about ideas and trying to figure out solutions to problems, weigh the value of the words and not the measure necessarily of the person. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say about this. I think I've said everything I have to say. It's probably a whole bunch of little things that I've said in the past, just conglomerated together. Think of this as a collage of scribe-light wisdoms and witticisms. If you guys have anything you'd like to add real quick before I sign off, be sure to put them in the chat now. I'll look up a little bit. Okay. Okay. Just as a note, I'm not going to be doing any rumor promoting or mongering here. If something's happening in the world, I'll find out in the news shortly enough. Renovation, the progressive left do not have good arguments. Liberals, centrists, conservatives all have some good arguments. All the progressive left have is hatred, destruction of people, democracy, and due process. Well, then you've shut yourself off from the possibility that they might have a point about something. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, anybody who would consider themselves to be on that side of the equation can't be reasoned with. No reason to listen to them at all. I mean, that's your choice. I'm not going to start, in that same vein, I'm not going to demonize you because I happen to disagree with you. But in my opinion, if we're going to move on from this, we need to listen to individuals and what they have to say as individuals. Monolithing people or dismissing them on the basis of either a declared or presumed association to very abstract concepts, the divisions will exist. And again, I don't know the answer to how to get past this as a perfect human being or anything. But for yourself and for anybody else, listen to what individuals say, individual actions, right? I mean, the riots of the summer, the riot at the Capitol, doesn't matter what their intentions were, doesn't matter what their political leanings were. Both kinds of actions were wrong, illegal, and unacceptable, right? Okay. Are there more reasonable people on the left than those that caused riots and destruction in the summer? Yes. And even those who might sympathize with the rioters, are there those on the left who don't? Yes. There are gradations to everyone in all of these things. So listen to what someone says of themselves and don't just dismiss them out of hand because of an association. That's my advice. That's just my advice. Dark Resurrect, Scribe-Light, it's never a bad idea to take a step back and just take a breath and reevaluate everything you see and hear. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true too. I guess I'm more concerned about people just tuning out or dismissing people and the possibility of other things or some kind of compromise option because of a bias that might be justified to a certain extent. If you watched all the riots over the summer and you listened to the apologetics by those in the media and so on, it would be easy to believe that anybody who considers themselves a Democrat or on the left falls within those same categories of riot apologists or something. That's not necessarily so. You know, give people a chance to explain themselves first before you assess whether or not it's worth listening to them. That's all. You know. Let's see. Gulf City Johnny Blaze. Sometimes you have to be the bad guy to get the point across. Also pay uploaded so later y'all have a great day. Okay. I guess it depends on what you mean by the bad guy. Like I said, I can appreciate and have no problem with adversarial debates, even passionate debates. But that's the thing, debate, not dismissal, a back and forth, not an elimination sort of thing or a complete, blame game or, just ignoring somebody. As long as we're talking, actually talking, communicating, we're not fighting. And by fighting, I mean actual violence. I'd much prefer a war of words than I would anything like what happened at the Capitol or anything that happened in Portland or anything that happened in the other cities over the summer. Thank you, RVADAR Rivadar. Thank you for the donation. It's very generous of you. Thank you. Logan, Scribelight, we need common goals first. The way we get there is what we debate. Yes. Now, we need to find out what those things are that we can agree upon, even in the abstract, and then try to work towards some kind of compromise. I know, I'm sounding like a hippie here or something, but I'll tell you what's been going on the last 4 years, hell, what's been going on the last 12 years thereabouts, sure ain't working. So I really hope we find a better way to believe in things we believe, even if they don't always gel with everybody else, but find a way to express them peaceably and productively. You can be angry at the other side. You can hate the other side, I guess. But at least, listen occasionally. On the off chance, there might be some room for agreement. That's all. Thank you again, Rivadar. Clarity over agreement. Yeah. Like I say, the TEDx's, I want to understand. I want to at least know where they're coming from. I want to at least get the argument, even if it ends up not convincing me, even if I think it's bad. And in finding out that it's bad, that teaches me something. I can't count how many restorative justice presentations I've watched. And I always go in saying something to the effect of, so far, nobody sold me on this idea. But every time I see one come up, I give it a shot. Because you never know. Maybe there's something useful in there. Try and see, because every speaker's different. Somebody might have a better idea. Thank you, John Miller. Peace be with everyone. I'm just so tired of all the BS that has been going on. I am too, especially the last couple of nights and different points over the course of the last year or two. Just been worn out, a little burnt out by all the yuck. And don't get me wrong, I'm no less a cynic right now than I was yesterday. I don't believe I'm any less a pragmatist now than I was yesterday. But one of the primary ingredients to being a true cynic is hope. Because if you don't have a little hope, you can't have it dashed in order to be a really good cynic. But anyway, everyone, just want to do a real quick babble and rant. Hope everyone is well. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. If you'd like to hear more from me or the Ranting Monkey or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find all three of us tonight on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day. Probably. We might take a break again. I don't know. News stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, really, please, I hope you have a good day. I hope everyone has some time to relax and reflect and take a breather from all the garbage of the world. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.